Now, we are going through very interesting times and very hard times as well. And especially as a healthcare worker, as especially someone who's in service industry, I see many people struggling with so many things. And I watch them get defeated quite a lot. And I also have been reading quite a lot of philosophy. And because of that, even though it's quite challenging to my brain, because it's quite hard to understand and think that abstract, even though I love it, um, I started to view things through the lens of philosophy, and I have been questioning quite a lot of things, as if I don't already do that quite a lot. I have been doing that way more. And because of that, today I want to talk about failure and if it exists, because I don't think it does. Because, okay, let's talk about this. When you were a kid, did you understand what failing was? Because I didn't. If I did not get grounded, I wouldn't stop. And when did that change? Why did that change? Why did we stop doing that? I mean, it's maybe good for the society, or maybe it's good for the billionaires. So you see, when we were kids, we were really after the things that we wanted, and we would not know how to stop, even when we were toddlers, or even as babies. If we wanted to have some milk or some food or some sleep, we would just throw a tantrum, wouldn't we? And that kind of dies down in a human's development around around adolescence, probably. Not really, actually. If you think about it, even adolescence is quite a rebelling stage of human development. So why, as adults, do we give so much importance and value to obedience? What is obedience? Why do we just give up when we do not have the desired outcome? Why do we just try once? Is the question that I want to ask, because I think that is quite a stupid and simple way of thinking about life. Because when we were kids, even as teenagers, when we wanted something, we would go after it time after time after time until we got that. And if we did not, we would learn. That's how we learn to speak. That's how we learn to socialize. That's how we learned math. And yeah, and that's how we got here, basically. When we were kids, we were free to do that. And in ancient times, we were also free. I mean, they had different societal rules. But as human beings, the things that we use daily are thanks to our perseverance as a species, right? Because I'm in a building, it's made out of stone. How did we learn that? How did we learn to make a building out of stones? We have been building stone buildings for thousands of years, even though they collapse and there are earthquakes and things happen. We rob each other, we break into each other's houses, but we still keep going to build these houses, and we do these things. We build all these things and we make things, despite the fact that sometimes those things break down and those things don't work. We just keep improving, and that's how we got here as a species. So why did we stop doing that? Because also in media, in movies and stories and books, if you give some attention to the story arc, you will see that some stories don't do that, but especially the current media, popular storytelling, is kind of seems like it's based on this one chance thing, and it's quite interesting. As in, there's a problem, the main character has to solve it at once, and that puts so much pressure on them, and then eventually they find a way to win and succeed, but they still have a chance. But then in some good stories, there are some other chances that are playing a role. But the main thing that we tell each other is that we have just one chance. We have one life. We have only until our 20s to get all the qualification to be a good person. And after that, we only have 10 more years to build the life to live and thrive. But does that sound like thriving, really, if you think about it? Because I don't think it does. Because in many societies, in many native cultures, actually, they don't really give up. They don't really have a concept of aging and senescence, to be quite specific. And they just base their lives on these life missions, these ambitions, and they just go after it throughout their lives. And it really sounds like a human thing. Like, if you think about human history and if you look at those cultures, that just makes sense. If you think about the modern, this Western and Eurocentric way of lifestyle, it doesn't make sense how it seems human, because human history didn't go like that, really. I think there are more important things at play in this situation, because, like I said, the media is really guiding us to this way of duality in our lives. This only we have one chance, or we just fail, and that's it. Because the rich, the billionaires, don't really have that way of living. They have the privilege of failing. They keep going and going and going, even though the results, but it seems like the rules don't apply to them. There are systematic things that keep us from trying more, like, if, I don't know, some financial security things and some other things, some legal things, but they don't play a role in the billionaire's life, does it? And that is also, it seems like, a way of mass controlling. This is just a thought, but I think if you let everyone do these things as much as they can, it might become more hostile quite quickly. But these other native cultures that I mentioned before are not that hostile. They're quite friendly, actually. Maybe this thought that I came up with, that we would become more hostile, is based on the propaganda and the manipulation of the system on me. I don't know. I don't believe in failure, apparently. And that's the point I'm trying to get to. And I think like this because in my personal life, in my patient's life, and in my friend's life, actually, I see that failure is one of the biggest reasons why we stop ourselves from improving and getting better and solving things. We just sometimes stop going through the problems and just bettering our lives because we failed once and we get scared to do that again. And that's also fear as a miscontrol item. But when these things add up, they really affect human life, because that's what I see when I look at the people that I see daily. And I think, as many things as we have to deal with, this is also one of the things that we have to deal with in these modern ages to really better ourselves. I'm not saying that it's easy, but we have to find a way to get over this fear of failure and just experience this human life as humans who fail and then learn and then succeed eventually. Because as I said, that's how we learn to speak. And yes, no native speaker speaks a perfect language. There is no perfect language. Everyone has their own way of speaking. But the point of speaking basically is to understand each other. And even though we've failed before when we were kids, and even though we fail daily in our speech, that doesn't change the fact that we can communicate. And we communicate every day, every minute of our lives, and especially more in this modern age with social media, because we use language way more than, I don't know, a century before, because we're always going through videos and writings, and we are engaging in these linguistic activities way more than a person was a century ago, basically. And if that happened, apart from all the other things that as humans we built on this earth, I think that is a testament of the bravery and the perseverance of humans, and how it can really help us to live this life as fully as possible. And as a healthcare professional, I think that's one of the most important things in a human's life, because you never know what's going to happen in a few days, in a few minutes. And if you live your life the way you want to, as authentically as possible, then you're not going to have any regrets. And at the end of your life, at the end of the day, you're going to be satisfied. All this chase after the perfection and the wealth and the happiness, I think the important thing is satisfaction, actually. And the way of finding that is really going after the things that really call us, and just trying this life, doing things in this life, and just figuring out what we want to do, what really nurtures us, and eventually spend our time in that lifestyle. I think that's the most important thing. And the number one problem, the number one obstacle in that assignment, I think, is failure. And I think we really should find ways to come over failure and fear of failure as well. So yeah, this was it for today's video. Thank you for listening. If you liked it, please leave a like down below, and you can subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. Bye.